Hello, and welcome back to Super English Talks. I'm your host, Jara. Today we are going to continue with a very important topic. It is something that can completely change the way you learn and use English. It is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It is not just about memorizing rules or finishing exercises in a book. No, this is something much bigger. It is a journey that happens inside your mind. We're going to talk about how to train your brain to think in English. Maybe you remember when we first talked about this idea. It is about moving away from the habit of translating everything in your head. Many learners do this. First, you have a thought in your native language. Then you look for the words in English. You build the sentence step by step. You check the grammar. You fix the word order. And only after all that, you speak. This process is very slow. It feels heavy, like trying to run through thick mud. You want to move fast, but your legs feel stuck. It is tiring. It makes speaking English stressful. And worst of all, it stops you from showing your true personality. But there is another way. A much better way. Imagine your thoughts flowing quickly, directly into English words. Imagine speaking with the same speed and freedom that you have in your own language. That is what it means to think in English. It is like creating new roads inside your brain, super fast highways that connect your ideas directly to English. No more detours through translation. No more stopping to build every sentence like a puzzle. Just smooth, natural expression. Think of it like this. It is the difference between looking at a map of a city and actually walking through the city. When you walk the streets, you feel the rhythm, the life, the energy. That is what happens when you stop translating and start thinking in English. Of course, this change does not happen overnight. There is no magic button. It takes time. It takes patience. And it takes smart practice every day. But with consistency, your brain can build this new habit until it feels natural. And to help you understand this journey, we are going to follow the story of our friend Alex. Alex is a hardworking English learner. He has studied for many years. He knows grammar rules. He can read pretty well. But when it comes to speaking, he feels stuck. His brain works like a translation machine, and every conversation feels like a mountain to climb. We already talked about his difficult experience at an international conference. Surrounded by people from around the world, he wanted to join the conversation. He wanted to share his ideas. But instead, he felt invisible, trapped in silence. But Alex's struggles did not start at that conference. They started earlier, in small, everyday situations. One afternoon, on a simple Tuesday, Alex decided to do something nice for himself. Alex stood in front of the barista, ready to order his drink. In his mind, the translation started. "I want a coffee with milk large." It didn't sound natural. In fact, it sounded a little robotic, almost like a computer. It also felt a bit too direct, maybe even rude. He remembered what one of his English teachers had said many times. "I would like" is more polite. So, Alex restarted the sentence in his head. He carefully put the words together again. "I would like a large coffee with milk." That sounded better. More polite. More correct. But while Alex was still building this sentence in his mind, the barista, noticing his hesitation, jumped in to help. "Just a latte, cappuccino?" the barista asked kindly, pointing at the menu. Alex froze. His brain suddenly felt like it was on fire. The flow is broken, he thought. He had prepared one sentence, and now the situation had changed. His mental plan collapsed. In a small panic, he simply blurted out, "Yes, latte. Large." The barista nodded, still smiling. "No worries. Anything else for you today?" Alex's brain exploded with questions. No worries? What does that mean? Is he saying he was worried? Does it mean something bad? In Spanish, there was no exact translation. He decided to ignore it and just move on. Then came the second part. Anything else for you today? Again, Alex had to translate. In his mind, he thought Algoras now translate. He finally said, no, that's all. It was correct, but it felt flat. He paid for his coffee. His face was warm, almost burning with embarrassment. He took the cup and sat down at a small table in the corner. Then the frustration hit him, wave after wave. It had been such a simple interaction, just ordering a coffee. Yet it felt like a test he had failed. He had sounded robotic. He hadn't understood the natural, friendly phrases the barista used. He had felt clumsy, slow, and small. Alex thought to himself, 3 years. I've been studying English for 3 years. Why is it still so hard? That small moment in the cafe, combined with the painful silence at the international conference, became Alex's turning point. He finally understood something important. The problem wasn't vocabulary. He already knew hundreds, maybe thousands of words. The problem wasn't grammar either. He had studied plenty of rules. The real problem was the system his brain was using. He was still translating. Right there, Alex made a decision. Quietly, deep inside himself, he declared war on translation. He decided, I will do whatever it takes to think directly in English. This was the start of his real journey, and also the start of our lesson. The very first and most important step Alex took was to change his environment. You see, the brain is an amazing machine. It adapts to whatever it does most often. If it spends every day surrounded by your native language, then of course it will keep defaulting to that language. But if you want your brain to think in English, you need to surround it with English. You need to create a little English bubble around yourself, right where you live. So Alex started small with his phone. He switched the system language from Spanish to English. The very next morning, he noticed the difference. His alarm rang and the screen showed 2 buttons, snooze and stop. He already knew these words, but still, it was a new signal to his brain. Today is different. Today we live in English. He checked his messages. Normally, he would see the word mensajes, but now it said messages. A small change, but enough to make his brain work differently. Later, he wanted to check the weather. He scanned the apps on his phone. Normally, he would look for clima, but now he had to find weather. Another small adjustment. That afternoon, he tried to change a setting for his notifications. He opened settings. But this time, everything was in English. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, notifications, display, brightness. It took him a full minute to find what he wanted, something that usually took him only 10 seconds. He felt annoyed. This is so inefficient, he thought. He almost switched the phone back to Spanish just to make it faster. But then he stopped himself. He realized something. This frustration was a good sign. It meant his brain was being forced to create new connections. He took a deep breath, read the options slowly, and found what he needed. By the end of that day, Alex had probably read more than 100 English words without opening a single textbook. Soon Alex began to notice something interesting. He was no longer translating everything in his head. When he saw messages, he didn't think of the Spanish word mensajes first. He simply knew what messages meant. The word was now connected directly to its function. This was a huge change. And here's the secret. Small changes like this build up over time. Every notification, every menu, every app name, Each one becomes a tiny English lesson. These micro-lessons repeat every day, and little by little, they start to rewire your brain. But Alex didn't stop with his phone. He moved on to his laptop. Again, he switched the system language to English. Then, he went to his favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. He changed the interface language to English too. Something unexpected happened. Because his settings were now in English, the algorithms assumed he was an English speaker. Slowly, his feed began to change. He started seeing more posts in English. News stories from American and British sources appeared. Videos from English-speaking creators popped up. Even advertisements were now in English. Without leaving his city, Alex was creating a digital world in English. His online life, the world he looked at every day, was no longer in Spanish. It was in English. The next area he changed was entertainment. Alex loved watching movies and TV series. For years, his habit had been English audio with Spanish subtitles. At first, this felt like a good compromise. But now Alex realized something important. Subtitles in his native language were a crutch. His brain was being lazy. Instead of listening carefully, it just read the Spanish text and half ignored the English audio. So he decided to make a bold change. English audio with English subtitles. The first time he tried this, it was tough. He chose a fast-paced action movie. The characters spoke quickly. They used slang he didn't know. Alex found himself pausing the movie again and again. He would read the subtitle, listen to the words, and try to connect the two. Sometimes he discovered something surprising. For example, he saw the word subtle in the subtitles. He already knew this word from reading. But when the character spoke it, he didn't recognize it at first because the B is silent. Oh, he thought. So that's how you say it. Moments like this were golden. He wasn't just learning new words, he was connecting written English to spoken English. This is one of the most important skills for listening comprehension. It took Alex 3 full hours to finish a 2-hour movie. But when he was done, he felt amazing. He had learned more in that one session than in an entire week of normal classes. After a few weeks of practicing with English subtitles, Alex was ready for the next step. No subtitles at all. This was scary. To make it easier, he chose a sitcom he had already seen before in Spanish. Since he already knew the basic story, he didn't have to worry about following every detail. The first 10 minutes were chaotic. The actors spoke too fast. The words blended together. His brain screamed, "I'm missing everything." He felt panic rising. But he forced himself to calm down. Instead of chasing every single word, he focused on other things: the characters' faces, their tone of voice, their body language, and the audience's laughter. Slowly, something changed. He couldn't always understand the exact joke, but he could tell when a joke was made. He began to follow the situations. He started to feel what was happening, even without full understanding. Night after night, Alex repeated this routine, just 20 minutes of a show with no subtitles. And slowly, like a blurry picture becoming clear, the English language started to make sense. His brain, desperate for meaning and no longer able to lean on subtitles, began to work harder. It started noticing the rhythm, the intonation, the natural melody of spoken English. This was a breakthrough. Alex wasn't chasing individual words anymore. He was beginning to understand the flow of English. And here's the important lesson for you. You can do the same. Think of this as a staged approach. Step 1. Watch with subtitles in your native language. Step 2. Switch to subtitles in English. Step 3. Turn off subtitles completely starting with short, easy, or familiar shows. Each step slowly removes your brain's dependence on translation. You are teaching your brain to understand English directly from sound. Once Alex built this strong, immersion bubble around himself, he realized the next challenge was even bigger, changing what was happening inside his own head. Up to this point, Alex had been changing the input of his life. His phone, his laptop, his entertainment, all of it was now in English. But one thing was still missing: the output.
His own thoughts.
He realized something important. If he wanted to think in English, he couldn't just surround himself with English. He also had to train his brain to produce English from the inside out. So Alex started with the smallest possible step: single words. He called this technique internal labeling. As he moved through his apartment, he would look at objects and name them silently in English. For example, when he woke up in the morning: alarm clock, lamp,
Pillow.
blanket. When he walked to the window: window,
Curtain. Glass. Sky. Cloud.
In the kitchen, there was even more vocabulary: refrigerator, faucet,
Sink.
countertop,
Cabinet. Stove.
oven, microwave. Suddenly, his home was not just a place to live, it was a classroom. The first time he went grocery shopping after starting this exercise, the experience felt completely new. He walked into the supermarket, a place he had been 100 times before, but now he looked at it through English eyes. At the vegetable section: lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers. Then he stopped. He saw something he didn't know. In Spanish, it was calabacin. The old Alex would have simply thought the word in Spanish and moved on. But the new Alex did something different. He pulled out his phone. On it, he had installed a monolingual English dictionary, an English-to-English dictionary, not English to Spanish. This was a crucial decision. He typed in calabacin, found the English equivalent, and saw zucchini. Then, instead of stopping there, he looked up zucchini in his English dictionary. It said, a long green summer squash. He read the definition carefully. He whispered the word to himself: zucchini, zucchini, zucchini. In that moment, he had learned a new word and its meaning completely inside English. No translation needed. His immersion bubble grew stronger. As he continued through the supermarket, he kept labeling: cereal boxes, soup cans, jars of jam. At the checkout:
Cashier.
conveyor belt, credit card machine, receipt. What was usually just a boring routine, shopping for food, had become an intensive real-world vocabulary lesson. He wasn't memorizing from a list. He was attaching English words directly to real, physical objects. And you can do this too. Right now, pause and look around your space. Name 5 things in English:
Desk. Chair.
computer,
Mug.
lamp. Congratulations! You just created the very first level of English thinking. Each time you do this, you're building direct connections in your brain, connections that skip translation and go straight to English. After a couple of weeks of this practice, Alex noticed something. His inner world was no longer only in Spanish. It was sprinkled with English words, and he felt ready for the next step. Now he wanted to move from words to sentences. So he began to narrate his own life in English, like a silent commentator in his head. His morning routine became his training ground. When he woke up, his thoughts sounded like this: I am waking up. I am turning off my alarm. I am getting out of bed. My feet are on the floor. The floor is cold. Then in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. I am opening the fridge. I am taking out the milk and the eggs. Now I am closing the fridge. I need a bowl. Here is a bowl. I am cracking 2 eggs into the bowl. I need a fork. I am whisking the eggs with a fork. I am adding a little milk. I am turning on the stove. I am putting a pan on the stove. The pan is getting hot. I am pouring the eggs into the pan. I can hear them sizzle. At first, this might seem a little silly talking to yourself inside your own head. But think about what Alex was actually practicing.
Subjects, I. Verbs, am waking, am toning, am opening.
Objects: alarm, fridge, eggs, fork. Prepositions: on the floor, into the bowl, on the stove. He wasn't just repeating grammar rules. He was living the grammar. And this is the magic of the technique. By narrating your own actions in English, even silently, you are building the habit of thinking directly in English sentences. When Alex thought, "I can hear them sizzle," something powerful was happening. He wasn't just naming objects anymore. He was connecting an actual sensory experience, the sound of eggs cooking, to the English word sizzle. This kind of connection is gold. It creates incredibly strong memory links. Alex was no longer memorizing grammar rules from a book. He was living those rules through real actions, real objects, and real experiences. And the best part is, you can do this with almost anything. Think about your own daily routines: brushing your teeth, taking a shower, getting dressed, making your bed. These are activities we usually do on autopilot without thinking. But Alex discovered that these small moments are perfect opportunities to train your brain in English. So here's something you can try tomorrow morning. When you're making breakfast or preparing coffee, narrate the steps in your mind in English. For example, I am getting a cup. I am putting coffee in the cup. I am pouring hot water. That's it. Simple, but incredibly powerful. As Alex grew more confident, he noticed something. Our thoughts are not always about the present moment. We also spend a lot of time thinking about the future and reflecting on the past. If he wanted to think fully in English, he needed to practice those time frames too. So Alex created a new routine. He called it structured thinking time. He gave himself 2 short sessions every day, just 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening. In the morning, while drinking his coffee, Alex practiced thinking about the future. He would open his notebook and ask himself, "What am I going to do today?" Then he would answer in English, either writing it down or simply thinking it through. For example, my workday starts at 9. I have an important meeting at 10 with my team. I need to prepare for it. I will review the sales figures. After the meeting, I am going to write my weekly report. For lunch, I will probably eat the chicken I cooked yesterday. This afternoon, I have to call a supplier. I hope I can reach them. After work, I think I will go for a run if it's not raining. In those few minutes, Alex was practicing future forms while going to have to, modal verbs, hope probably, and vocabulary connected to his real schedule. He wasn't just learning words, he was training his brain to plan in English. In the evening, just before bed, Alex did the opposite. He reflected on the past. He would ask himself, "What did I do today?" His answers might sound like this. The meeting this morning was productive. I think my boss liked my ideas. I wrote the report, and it took longer than I expected. It was quite difficult. I didn't call the supplier because I didn't have time. I will have to do it tomorrow. I went for a run after work, and it felt great. I listened to an English podcast while running. I understood most of it, which was a nice surprise. For dinner, I made a simple salad. Now I am tired and ready to sleep. Here, Alex was practicing the past tense, but also learning to connect verbs with emotions and evaluations. Words like productive, difficult, felt great, Nice surprise gave him the tools to describe not just what happened, but also how he felt about it. This simple 10-minute daily habit had an enormous effect. It trained his brain to move smoothly between past, present, and future. Alex was no longer just a narrator describing actions. He was becoming a thinker in English, someone who could plan, reflect, and express himself. And here's the best part. You can start this tonight. Before you go to sleep, recall 3 things you did today in English. For example, today I worked. I cooked dinner. I watched a movie. That's enough to begin. Tomorrow morning, try to plan 3 things you will do. I will go to work. I will meet my friend. I will buy groceries. Step by step, you are teaching your brain to think in English about your real life. Because thinking isn't only about logistics or narration. It's also about ideas, opinions, and creativity, and Alex was about to explore those next. Alex knew he had climbed many small hills already, labeling objects, narrating his routines, planning his day. But now he faced his next big mountain, expressing his own unique ideas in English. Not just what I am doing or what I did, but what he truly thought about the world. To train this skill, Alex invented something he called the Internal Debate Club. The rules were simple. He would pick a question, often while commuting to work or washing dishes, and then argue with himself in English. He would first take one side, then switch and argue for the opposite side. For example, one day he asked himself, is it better to live in a big city or in the countryside? He began with the city. Living in a city is better because there are more opportunities. It's easier to find a good job. There are more things to do: museums, theaters, concerts, amazing restaurants. In a city, you can meet people from all over the world. Public transportation is usually very good, so you might not even need a car. Then he switched sides. On the other hand, the countryside is much more peaceful and quiet. The air is cleaner. Life is less stressful. It's a safer place to raise children. You are closer to nature, which is good for your mental health. The cost of living is lower, so you can afford a bigger house. In just a few minutes of mental debate, Alex was practicing incredibly useful skills. Comparative language, better, more peaceful, easier. Reasoning with examples because, for example, transition words, on the other hand, also so. Multiple perspectives, city life versus countryside life. And he did all of this in the safe, private theater of his own mind. No pressure, no fear of mistakes, no one judging him. You can try this too. Choose a topic that interests you and debate it in your head for 5 minutes. Are social media good or bad for society? Should all students learn a second language? What's the best movie of all time, and why? You'll be amazed at how this simple exercise pushes your vocabulary, improves your grammar, and helps you organize thoughts in English. But then something happened. Alex hit a wall. This is a moment almost every language learner experiences. At first, he had felt amazing progress, like he was climbing fast, reaching new levels every week. But now, things slowed down. He kept narrating his mornings. He kept doing his structured thinking. He even continued his internal debates. But the improvement felt invisible. His conversations still had awkward pauses. He still struggled to find the right words sometimes. Frustration crept back in. Maybe this is as good as I can get, he thought. Maybe I just don't have the talent for this. This stage is called the plateau. It's dangerous because many learners give up here. They think progress has stopped forever. But Alex did something different. Instead of quitting, he stopped and analyzed his situation. He realized the problem wasn't his ability. The problem was his routine. He was repeating the same exercises over and over. The same morning narration. The same work-related vocabulary. The same patterns of thought. His brain was comfortable, but too comfortable. So Alex decided to shake things up. He needed new input and new challenges. The first change he made was reading. Up until now, he had focused so much on listening and thinking that he had neglected reading for pleasure. So one afternoon, he walked into a bookstore. He found the section for graded readers, books written in simple English, carefully adapted for learners at different levels. He picked a detective story that matched his level. That night, instead of watching TV, he sat down with his new book and read the first chapter. And what he discovered was a revelation. Reading opened an entirely new door for Alex. Unlike his daily conversations or his internal monologues, books exposed him to richer vocabulary and more complex sentence structures. He noticed how native writers naturally used prepositions, how they connected ideas with clauses, and how sentences flowed together in ways that were both logical and elegant. Without memorizing grammar rules, Alex's brain was quietly absorbing these patterns. These well-formed sentences became new mental models for how he could think and speak. After finishing his detective story, Alex decided to raise the bar. Every day, he chose an online article on a subject he knew little about: astronomy, marine biology, or ancient history. At first, it was difficult. He had to stop and look up new terms. But this effort was exactly what he needed. It pushed him outside his comfort zone and expanded his vocabulary into areas he never would have reached in casual conversation. Reading was no longer just a pastime. It had become a powerful way to feed his English brain. But input alone wasn't enough. Alex knew he had to put himself in real conversations. That's when he introduced a new person into his journey, Sarah, a Canadian who was learning Spanish. They met through a language exchange platform and agreed to practice together on Skype. 30 minutes in Spanish, 30 minutes in English. The first call was terrifying. Until now, Alex had been practicing inside his head. Now suddenly his words had to come out live in real time with another human listening. He spoke slowly, paused often, and made mistakes. But Sarah was patient and encouraging. By their second conversation, Alex was already learning something important. He told her about his weekend and said, "I did a party with my friends." Sarah smiled and gently corrected him. In English, we usually say have a party or throw a party, not do a party. This wasn't criticism. It was a gift. A light bulb went on in Alex's mind. He realized he wasn't just learning words, he was learning chunks and collocations, groups of words that naturally go together. He started a new section in his notebook titled Chunks and Collocations. On the first page, he wrote, "Have a party/throw a party, not do a party. Make a decision. Take a risk. Spend time. Waste money." Soon, he began listening for these everywhere in podcasts, movies, even his own conversations with Sarah. Then he practiced them in his internal monologues. "I need to make a decision about my vacation. I don't want to waste money on things I don't need." The difference was dramatic. His English started to feel more natural, less like a collection of separate words, and more like smooth, ready-made expressions. Then Sarah taught him something even deeper: idioms. One evening, Alex told her about a difficult project at work. He said, "I have to do this difficult thing, but I will do it." Sarah replied, "Ah, so you just have to bite the bullet." Alex froze. Bite a bullet? His mind pictured chewing on metal. Sarah laughed and explained. It was an idiom, meaning to face a difficult situation bravely, to just get it done even if it's unpleasant. For Alex, this was a breakthrough. He realized that English wasn't only about grammar and vocabulary. It was also full of culture, history, and imagery. Every idiom was like a secret door into the way native speakers thought. And beyond the language itself, Sarah gave him something even more powerful, the feeling that he was not alone. The exchange wasn't one-sided. Sarah also struggled with Spanish, and sometimes she got frustrated too. One week, during their Spanish practice, Alex noticed she seemed upset. Gently, he asked her in Spanish what was wrong. Sarah sighed and, switching back to English, admitted, "It's my Spanish. I feel like I'm not making any progress. I had this really embarrassing moment last week. I went to this little family-run bakery where no one speaks English. I love it there, and I wanted to buy 2 loaves of bread for my parents. But when I tried to say it, I completely messed up. I said, 'Dos pain para mi haters.'" Alex sat frozen in his chair. His first instinct was panic. The thought of standing in front of American clients, explaining complex data in English, made his stomach twist into knots. The old Alex would have immediately started rehearsing in Spanish, planning what he wanted to say, then trying to translate it word by word. But this time was different. Over the past months, he had built a new mental system. He had practiced narrating, planning, reflecting, debating, reading, and speaking with Sarah. He wasn't just memorizing English anymore, he was thinking in English. He took a slow breath and said to himself, almost like a mantra, "This is not the conference. This is not the coffee shop.
I have tools now."
That night, Alex sat at his desk with his notebook open. He didn't write his presentation in Spanish. He didn't even allow himself to think in Spanish. Instead, he built it directly in English, using the very strategies that had carried him this far. First, he outlined the key points in simple English sentences. The goal of the project, the data we collected, what the analysis shows, what it means for the client. Then he expanded each point into chunks and collocations he had practiced. We carried out the analysis. The results indicate a clear trend. We need to take action based on this data. This could have a significant impact on your next steps. He spoke them out loud, repeating until they felt natural in his mouth. He didn't try to sound perfect. He focused on sounding clear and confident. Next, he imagined questions the clients might ask. He practiced answering them using his internal debate club technique. What if they ask me about limitations? One limitation of this dataset is the sample size, but the trend is still reliable. What if they ask for predictions? Based on the current figures, we expect this pattern to continue in the next quarter. By the time he finished, Alex realized something surprising. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was excited. The next afternoon, the meeting began. The American clients joined on video call, their faces filling the large screen in the conference room. Maria introduced Alex with pride. He stood up, hands slightly trembling, but his voice steady. He greeted them directly in English. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance to present our analysis." As he spoke, he felt the flow he had been training for. Not a race through mud, not a robot translating word by word, but a river, clear, steady, moving forward. There were small mistakes, of course. A missing article here, a slightly awkward phrase there. But Alex didn't freeze. He didn't panic. When a client asked him a question, he paused, thought in English, and answered directly. At one point, a client nodded and said, "That's a very insightful observation." Those words stuck in Alex's mind. Insightful. He had read that word before in an article, but now it was being used to describe his idea in English in a professional setting. When the meeting ended, Maria gave him a quick smile and whispered, "Well done." Alex sat down, his heart still racing, but now it was from exhilaration, not fear. He had just crossed a threshold. All those hours of invisible training, the narrating, the structured thinking, the debates, the collocations, the idioms, the shared laughter with Sarah had prepared him for this very moment. He wasn't just studying English anymore. He was living in English. Alex looked at his boss. His heart was beating fast, but he didn't want to show fear. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Okay, Maria, I can do that. I will need some time today to prepare." The moment he left her office, the panic tried to return. His brain whispered, "It's too hard. You can't do this. What if you fail?" But Alex didn't let the fear win. Instead, he answered the fear with a plan. He told himself, "I will use everything I have learned, every technique, every habit. This is my test, but I am ready." Step 1. Structured thinking. Alex sat down with his notebook. He opened a clean page and began to write his outline. Not in Spanish, only in English. He made a simple list. Introduction: say hello, welcome them, explain the purpose. Problem recap: remind them of the original challenge. Process: explain how we collected the data and how I analyzed it. Key findings: show the 3 most important results. Next steps: what we will do in the next 2 weeks. Q&A: time for questions and answers. Just by writing this outline, Alex already felt calmer. The presentation was no longer a big scary wall. It was a clear path with 6 steps. Step 2. Thinking in chunks. Alex knew he needed professional phrases. Not just individual words, but whole expressions that would sound natural and formal. He wrote a list of chunks to practice. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. The main purpose of this presentation is, now, let's move on to the next point. This brings me to my key findings. If you look at the graph on this slide, to summarize the main points, in conclusion, I would like to say, thank you for your time. I would now be happy to answer any questions you may have. These were like his safety net. Whenever he felt nervous, he could fall back on these ready-made sentences. Step 3. Talking to himself out loud. Alex found an empty meeting room in the office. He closed the door and stood in front of the chairs as if they were his audience. He gave the presentation out loud, just to the empty room. At first, his voice was shaky, but he kept going. He repeated the chunks over and over until they felt natural. Then he recorded himself on his phone. When he listened back, he heard the small mistakes, the nervous pauses. But he also heard something else: clarity. The words were coming out in English directly. He smiled. He was making progress. Step 4. Practice with Sarah. That evening, Alex had a quick emergency call with Sarah, his language partner. "Sarah, I'm so nervous," he admitted. "I have a big presentation tomorrow." He explained the situation. Sarah's eyes lit up. "Alex, this is amazing. This is exactly what you've been working toward. Let's practice." For 20 minutes, Sarah played the role of the client. She asked tough questions. "Can you explain that in a simpler way? What are the risks of this approach? Why did you choose this method instead of another?" Alex tried answering. Sometimes he hesitated, but Sarah guided him. This practice was gold. It prepared him for the unexpected. Step 5. Visualization. Before bed, Alex used one final tool: his imagination. He lay down, closed his eyes, and pictured the meeting. He didn't imagine everything going perfectly. Instead, he imagined feeling nervous, but still being able to breathe, pause, and speak clearly. He imagined a client asking a difficult question. In his mind, he saw himself pause, think, and then answer calmly. He fell asleep with the picture of success in his mind. The big day. The next afternoon, Alex sat in the conference room. His boss, Maria, was beside him. On the big screen, the American clients appeared. His heart was pounding, but it wasn't the paralyzing fear of before. It was energy, nervous, yes, but also powerful. When Maria introduced him, Alex took a slow, deep breath, exactly as he had practiced. He began, "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. The main purpose of today's presentation is to give you an update on the data analysis phase of the project." His voice was a little shaky at first, but it grew stronger as he continued. The words flowed, not perfectly, but clearly. For the first time, Alex felt it. He was not translating. He was thinking directly in English. Alex moved carefully through his slides. He used the phrases, the chunks that he had practiced so many times. Now, let's move on to the next point. This brings me to my key findings. The words came smoothly. His explanation of the process was clear and logical. He was talking about complicated ideas, but he was doing it all in English. At first, he could hear his heartbeat in his ears, but as he spoke, the fear slowly faded. He became focused on his message. For a few minutes, he even forgot to be scared. Then came the moment he had feared the most.
The end.
The questions. He clicked to his final slide and said, "I would now be happy to answer any questions." The room fell silent for a moment. Then one of the clients spoke. His name was Mr. Harrison, a senior manager with a serious voice.
"Thank you, Alex."
That was very clear. "I do have one question. On slide 7, you showed a projected efficiency gain of 15%. That seems a little optimistic. Can you tell me exactly what factors give you the confidence to predict that number?" Alex froze inside. The air in the room felt heavy. This wasn't just a small question. This was a direct challenge to his work. The old Alex would have panicked. His brain would have been a traffic jam of Spanish words trying to squeeze through the tiny toll booth of English. He would have stumbled searching for vocabulary, losing the structure of his thoughts. But the new Alex was different. He had practiced a new way of thinking. He paused. He looked at Mr. Harrison on the screen. His heart was still racing, but he didn't let it control him. He thought. And this time, the thinking happened in English. His inner voice said, "Okay. He thinks 15% is too high. He wants to know why I believe it's realistic." Factors. Yes, 3 factors. Factor 1, the new software. Factor 2, the new workflow. Factor 3, the training we gave the team. I need to explain each one simply. Alex took another breath, lifted his head, and began to speak. "That's an excellent question, Mr. Harrison. The 15% projection is based on 3 key factors. First, the new software we implemented automates several tasks that were previously done manually. That alone gives us about 5%. Second, we redesigned the workflow, which removes 2 unnecessary steps. Our initial tests show this adds another 5 to 6%. Finally, the team has completed a new training program. That training has reduced the error rate significantly, and this improves overall efficiency." He paused for just a second, then concluded, "The combination of those 3 factors is what makes us confident in the 15% figure." When he finished, his chest felt tight. His heart was still beating hard. But he had done it. He had answered clearly, with structure, and directly in English. On the screen, Mr. Harrison looked down at his notes. He nodded slowly. "I see," he said. "That makes sense.
Thank you for clarifying that.
It's good work." The words washed over Alex like warm sunlight. Relief rushed through his body, almost making him dizzy. He had done it. He had survived the moment he feared most. He had faced a difficult, unexpected question in a high-pressure situation and answered it. Not by memorizing, not by translating, but by thinking, processing, and speaking directly in English. Out of the corner of his eye, Alex saw his boss Maria give him a small, proud smile. She also gave him a tiny nod so small the clients would not notice. But to Alex, it was everything. In that moment, Alex realized something. He had crossed a threshold. This was no longer about learning English for travel or for exams. This was about being a competent, confident professional in a global world. English was no longer his barrier. It was his bridge. And yet, Alex soon discovered something surprising. His victory in the business world gave him confidence, but there was still another mountain waiting for him. A mountain that, in some ways, felt even more intimidating than giving a presentation to important clients. This was the next mountain for Alex: casual, unstructured social interaction. A few weeks later, during their weekly video call, Sarah said,
"Hey, Alex.
A few friends and I are having a game night at my apartment on Saturday. Just board games, snacks, nothing fancy. You should totally come." A mix of excitement and fear rushed through Alex. One-on-one with Sarah was fine. A structured presentation at work was challenging but manageable. But a room full of native speakers? Friends all talking over each other, telling jokes, using slang and cultural references? That sounded like the ultimate test. He imagined himself sitting quietly, invisible, unable to join the fun. For a moment, he almost made an excuse. "I think I have plans," he started. But then he remembered his goal, not just to speak English, but to live in English. A social life was part of that goal. He took a deep breath. "You know what, Sarah? I'd love to. Thank you for inviting me." Preparing with intention. The next 2 days, Alex felt a low-level anxiety. He worried. What if I don't understand anything? What if no one talks to me? What if I try to speak and it comes out wrong? Instead of trying to script every possible conversation in his head, Alex set a realistic goal for the night. Listen carefully. Try to follow the flow of conversations. Have at least one meaningful one-on-one conversation. His goal wasn't to be the funniest or most talkative. It was just to participate and stay engaged. Game night begins. When he arrived Saturday night, the apartment was already full of laughter and music. Sarah greeted him warmly and introduced him to a few friends. Names flew by fast. Mark, Emily, Tom, Chloe. The conversation was fast, like jumping into a river already moving at high speed. For the first hour, Alex mostly listened. He didn't worry about understanding every word.
He focused on
body language, tone of voice, energy in the room. When someone told a joke he didn't fully get, he watched others laugh and smiled along. He absorbed the fun energy without feeling lost. He used small conversational phrases he had practiced to stay involved. "Wow, that's crazy." "Oh, really?" It wasn't much, but it kept him from feeling invisible. The party game challenge. Later, they played a party game where players had to describe a word without saying it. When it was Alex's turn, his heart raced. His word was nostalgia. For a second, his mind went blank. The old translation habit tried to creep in. How do I say this in Spanish first? He stopped it. He decided to think directly in English. Okay, how to describe this? It's a feeling about the past, happy and a little sad at the same time. He started speaking slowly. It's a feeling. When you think about the past, maybe your childhood, it's happy but also a little sad because that time is gone. Like when you hear an old song on the radio. Emily's eyes lit up. Nostalgia, she shouted. Yes, Alex exclaimed, relieved. The group cheered. It was a small moment, but a big victory. Alex had just explained an abstract concept, under pressure, in English. He realized something important. He could now participate in real-life conversations, even when they were fast, unpredictable, and full of native expressions. Later in the evening, Alex found himself in the kitchen with Tom, one of Sarah's friends. They were both getting drinks when Tom asked the usual question. So, how do you know Sarah? Alex explained about their language exchange. That simple answer led to a quieter, one-on-one conversation. Tom was a graphic designer. He was curious about Alex's work in data analysis. In this calmer setting, Alex's English started to flow much more easily. He wasn't panicking. He was listening, thinking, and speaking naturally. They talked about work for a while, comparing the challenges of creative jobs with more logical, analytical ones. Then, surprisingly, they discovered a shared passion for old science fiction movies. You like those old movies too?
Tom asked, surprised.
I thought I was the only one. Of course, Alex said, letting his excitement show. I think the special effects were more creative back then. They had to use models and clever camera tricks. Not like today with all the CGI. For the next 20 minutes, they debated which movie had the best practical effects. Alex didn't think about grammar or vocabulary anymore. He was simply sharing his enthusiasm. He disagreed, laughed, made points, and listened. He was having a real, genuine conversation with someone new. He was connecting. When he left the party close to midnight, walking through the quiet streets, Alex felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It was different from the feeling after his presentation at work. The presentation had been a professional success. This was a personal success. He had survived a social situation that once would have terrified him. More than that, he had actually enjoyed it. He realized something important. Thinking in English wasn't just a tool for work. It was a key that unlocked human connection. It allowed him to share a laugh over a silly board game, discover common interests in a crowded kitchen, and feel part of a community. This insight filled him with a quiet, happy warmth. The long hours of practice, the structured exercises, and the internal debates weren't just about his career. They were about building his life. Being himself in English. A few weeks later, Alex noticed how far he had come. He was on a video call with his international colleagues before a meeting. David from the UK office started talking about baking bread over the weekend. It was as hard as a rock. I could have used it as a weapon, David joked. Without translating or planning, a thought popped fully formed into Alex's head, in English. He smiled and said, "Well, David, don't quit your day job." The colleagues laughed. David chuckled. "Good advice, Alex," he said. Alex felt a rush of pure joy. It wasn't just that he had spoken a grammatically correct sentence. He had made a joke, culturally appropriate, witty, and timely. It was something his Spanish personality would have said in Spanish. In that moment, Alex realized something extraordinary. The two versions of himself had merged. He was no longer a Spanish speaker struggling to express himself in English. He was simply Alex, a multilingual professional, able to connect, joke, and be himself in more than one language. This was the freedom Alex had been seeking. This was the ultimate reward for all his hard work. And it led him to the final, most profound stage of his journey. It wasn't just about speaking English or understanding it. It was about a deep change inside him, a shift in his inner world, and the way he thought about himself. One afternoon, Alex was sitting on a park bench, just watching people walk by. He wasn't practicing or studying. He was simply being. He looked up at the sky, and a thought appeared in his mind. The sky is so blue today. He paused. For the first time, the Spanish word azul didn't appear. There was no translation. The concept of that color, the sky, the exact shade, was directly connected to the English word blue. It was a small moment, but it felt enormous. It was as if he had installed a second, parallel operating system in his brain, experiencing new shades of feeling. Alex began thinking about the conversation he had with Tom at the party. They had talked about being thrilled for a new movie release. In Spanish, he would have said emocionado, but thrilled felt different. It wasn't just excited. It was sharper, more energetic, more electric. He realized that learning a language wasn't just attaching new labels to old feelings. It was discovering new feelings, or at least new shades of feelings he hadn't had precise words for before. The word content felt different from contento. It was quieter, more peaceful. His emotional vocabulary had expanded, and with it, his ability to understand his own inner state. Understanding cultural context. Alex then remembered the joke he had made on the video call. Don't quit your day job. Why had it been funny? It wasn't just the words. It was the shared cultural understanding. It was a gentle, playful way to tease someone about their lack of skill. A direct translation into Spanish would have made no sense. He realized that to truly think in English, he had to start thinking within an English cultural framework. Humor, politeness, directness, these were all part of the language itself. He was not just learning English words. He was learning to see the world in moments through an Anglophone lens. Two perspectives, one self. This didn't mean he was losing his own Spanish identity. On the contrary, he felt bigger. He could now move freely between two mental rooms. His Spanish room, rich with its own culture, feelings, and expressions. His English room, with its own unique tools for seeing and describing the world. He wasn't two different people. He was one person with two perspectives, two windows to understand reality. The wall of translation that had separated these rooms had finally dissolved. For Alex, this was the ultimate triumph. He could now live, think, and feel in both languages naturally. English was no longer a barrier. It was a new way to experience the world, a new way to express himself, and a new door to human connection. Now, Alex could move freely between his Spanish and English worlds without thinking. This feeling of integration and wholeness was even deeper than any successful presentation or social event. It was the quiet, internal growth of his mind, a success that no one else might see, but he felt it deeply. Alex's long journey shows a clear map for anyone who wants to think in English. It proves that progress comes from small, consistent, and deliberate actions. It's not just about memorizing words. It's about changing your environment, your habits, and the way you think. Let's go through a comprehensive recap of the steps he took. 1. Create an immersion bubble. Change your environment so your brain constantly sees and hears English. Switch your computer, phone, social media, and news apps to English. When you watch movies or shows, start with subtitles in your language, move to English subtitles, and finally try no subtitles. Choose content you can understand, but that still challenges you. 2. Label your world. Name the things around you in English. As you walk through your apartment or go shopping, connect the words directly to objects. When you don't know a word, use an English dictionary to stay fully inside the English zone. 3. Narrate your life. Talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing using the simple present and present continuous tenses. I am making breakfast. I am pouring coffee. I am turning on the stove. This connects vocabulary and grammar to real-life experiences. 4. Structured thinking time. Set aside short periods to actively think in English. In the morning, plan your day. I will call the client. I will review the report. In the evening, reflect on the day. I went for a run. I cooked dinner. I listened to a podcast. This trains your brain to think in English in different time frames. 5. Become an internal debater. Pick a topic and argue both sides in your mind. Is city life better than the countryside? This helps you practice giving reasons, comparing ideas, and using more advanced structures. 6. Overcome plateaus. When progress slows, introduce new challenges. Start reading graded readers, then move to more complex articles. This expands vocabulary, exposes you to correct sentence structures, and keeps your brain learning. 7. Practice with real people. Find a safe space to speak, like a language exchange partner. Conversations give real-world practice, corrections, and exposure to collocations, idioms, and cultural nuances. It also reminds you that everyone struggles at first. You're not alone. 8. Prepare for high-stakes situations. Whether professional presentations or social events, use everything you've learned. Outline your ideas, practice chunks, visualize success, and set realistic goals. Growth happens when you face challenges. 9. Open yourself to inner change. Learning a language changes more than your words. It expands your emotional vocabulary, cultural understanding, and perspective on yourself. It's not just about speaking fluently, it's about thinking, feeling, and being yourself in English. Every time you choose to think a thought in English instead of your native language, you're building fluency and confidence. You are literally creating new pathways in your brain. The ultimate goal is not only to speak without translating, it's to live fully in English, to share your personality, humor, and ideas with the world without a barrier. Your brain is capable of this. You just need to guide it, practice with it, and believe in it. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into retraining your brain to think in English. Remember, progress comes step by step. Every word you label, every sentence you narrate, every thought you practice in English is a small but powerful step toward fluency. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate your small victories, whether it's understanding a joke, answering a question, or simply thinking a thought directly in English. Enjoy the journey. It's not just about learning a language. It's about expanding your mind, connecting with others, and discovering new ways to express yourself. I look forward to our next session together. Keep practicing, be kind to yourself, and embrace the incredible journey of learning and living in English. Goodbye for now, and see you next time.